and welcome to the JB Doula podcast. I'm Jessica Brown, a certified birth and postpartum doula serving families in southwestern Pennsylvania, and here we talk about all things womanhood, birth work, and the childbearing years. Plenty will still apply to our other parenting journeys such as dads, trans, and non-binary friends. This episode is the wrap-up of What is a Doula series. Here we'll kind of go over all that we talked about through the series, from what a doula is to what a doula does and doesn't do, and kind of just fill in some gaps and have it just be like one nice tidy little thing to look at in case you want to go back and learn more, but you have a one-stop shop kind of deal of just what is a doula. And I'm sure I'll add to it as I go on, but for this one at least is where we're at and what we've got. So before we get started, just a quick request to like, share, subscribe, and follow. Share with a friend if you think that they might like to hear more about it, to learn more, and like if you learned something, if this resonated with you. jbdoula.com for the website. There's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at jbdoula. And yeah, let's get into it. So the What is a Doula series wrap up. This is going to summarize the previous topics we had, just like what is a doula do, how do they support you, and like what don't they do, and just like this general little summary for you. Like the other podcasts and blogs will still be there if you want to go more in depth. This will be like a little one-stop shop for you. And to start off like we did with the beginning of the series of just what is a doula? And a doula is a trained support professional who specializes in birth and sometimes postpartum too, like I do, and provides non-judgmental guidance for parents through the childbirth process. We're fulfilling a gap in society that was here before the pandemic hit, where the transition to parenthood is pretty isolating. A lot of parents live far away from their own parents and their grandparents, and they may have moved to a new city where they don't have the support system they had before with their friends and family. So we're going through this big life transition, this rite of passage, very isolated. And with that comes a lot of stress and uncertainty, and can make this transition much harder than it needs to be. So the doula is filling in this gap in society. Like, yes, you still will have the support if you have any from your family and friends, but like I had said in that first podcast, they have lives too. And with our structure society where you work to live, like they might not have the paid time off for vacation days so they can come be with you during the birth or be with you afterwards. And if they are, it might not be as long as you need or as consistently. And they may have their own families with multiple children that they can't make it away to stay with you, especially if it's a long distance to travel. So the doula is here for you to help fill in that gap so they can still provide the support that they can, and it relieves some of the pressure off of them and the pressure of stress off of you of what am I going to do? How am I going to cope with birth, and how am I going to cope with this transition of post-birth, this new parenthood with a newborn and recovery and the change in dynamic to your family, whether it's your first or fifth baby. Like there's going to be a change in dynamic between you, your baby, and also your partner and your other children. So having someone to help you navigate that with and to provide you the consistent support and this continuity of care from pregnancy to postpartum, because you don't always get that depending on who you have your provider. Even if you have a midwife, if it's at a birth center or at a hospital, it could be a team of midwives or a team of doctors. So you see maybe some of them, maybe all of them before birth, and you're not sure who you'll get depending on who's on call that day, because it's a rotation. It's a little easier if you have a home birth, because then that's the one you hired, and maybe their backup or their assistant. But you'll have that continuity there, but that you might not get with a birth center or hospital birth. Regardless of which one you go with, your doula will be there for you across the board. We'll meet with you prenatally and kind of set the stage for, all right, what do you want your birth to look like? What values do you have when it comes to birth and the choices you want to make for your family, and how do you want to feel afterwards? And do you already feel capable, confident, knowledgeable? Or are you uncertain, afraid, and kind of doubtful and don't know all of your options? So that's kind of the foundation, as I like to say so much. There is a lot of foundation. This is a foundational series. And we are here as the support and filling in this role in society that is lacking because we're pretty isolated and independent, and community is hard to come by in the way that we need when we need it, especially for something like this with this parenthood transition. And to do that, we have 5 aspects of support that we heavily draw from. And like I mentioned with starting prenatally, it is that informational support and mediational support. And that kind of like follows into the birth as well. Like both of these are used during the birth process, but informational is definitely one that we set the stage with. We find out where you're at, like we meet you where you're at. Like, what is your knowledge of birth? Is it Rachel from Friends who is just screaming and all of a sudden she has a baby, and those dramatic bursts of water and all of this stuff, and someone yelling push, and you're like, I don't want that, but that's all I know. That's what media has conditioned me for. This is what maybe my friends and family have conditioned me for, not realizing like there are other ways to birth. You don't have to be this geared up, someone yelling push. It can be quiet, it can be gentle, and it can be this like rhythmic flow, or it can also be intense and there can be high energy. And it's finding out what you value. Are you someone who likes like the big energy and like, yes, I need a cheerleader and like I definitely want to feel hyped up, and I do want someone to have like external reminders for me of just like, yes, I need you to push. Maybe it can be more encouraging and less like media Hollywood push, more just like, yeah, you keep doing you're doing great, your baby's almost here, and things like that. Just like, yes, keep going, encouragement versus commands. I'm not even sure. I wouldn't want someone yelling at me at my birth, but maybe that's your boat, and we can talk about it and see what's up and incorporate that if you really want. But that is that foundation of informational support during the prenatals. We want to see what you already know, meet you where you're at, let you know what your options are, fill in any gaps, and provide you resources, and also develop this birth vision of these preferences of like, you went through like, all right, I know I don't want to be at a hospital, I want a birth center and midwife, and I also definitely, I don't like being told what to do, so like don't tell me to do something, but like you can remind me gently, like soft jaw, don't be tight. Like don't say don't be tight, but say like loose soft jaw and low tones. You know, these little tips and tricks to help you, because you know how you react to stressful situations, and these can kind of carry over to how you'll react to birth, because it is stressful, it's intense, and it's a big moment, it's a big transformation and transition and rite of passage and all of these things. And we want to give you the tools to be able to move through it with confidence and feeling capable. And to do that, we have to find out what you know, fill in gaps, let you have all the resources that you need to be able to make informed decisions. And those decisions might need to change depending on what's going on, but letting you be a part of that process, because it's you should be. And that's kind of how we've been conditioned with our Western medicine. It's just the doctors let you know things, and you don't really get to feel like a part of the decisions, because oftentimes they let you know the minimum of what you need to know, so you say yes to a procedure or this and that without butting up against them and arguing and things like that. So providing you all the resources you need and the tools to make these choices, so you feel confident and capable in the choices you're making for you, your body, and your baby, your family. And we kind of go off of this where, all right, so you do know that you really like physical support, like you're huggy, you like to be close to people, and you know it feels good when someone like rubs your back, and don't touch my shoulder, but like my back feels great, or like my feet are ticklish, don't touch me there. And we find out like, all right, these things help you, this feels good for you, and developing a toolkit for you, a repertoire to draw from during birth, and things that we can practice together as a team beforehand, because like I like to say with partners and stuff, it's like if you watch sports or you watch performers, they didn't just do this. Like they practiced, and you have muscle memory. It's really important. So yes, you went to a childbirth education class, but that's a lot of information to learn at once. It's a ton. And if you're not familiar with all these ins and outs of like the phases of labor and how things can change and coping techniques and things like that, and then also being emotionally present for this birth and being a part of this rite of passage and transition, it's a lot to expect a partner to be everything from this childbirth class, like the birth coach and also like the doula, but also the parent and present and experiencing these big emotions of like your baby is being born, your family is expanding. So yes, it's important for partners to go to childbirth education classes. And yes, you and your partner can do this without a doula. Like you absolutely can. But you don't have to. And it can be easier and less stress to have a doula there because she knows all this. Like it's like you have a little pocket childbirth education person with you. It's like, oh yes, like what you're feeling is normal. This is okay. And you might be feeling this next. And we'll try X, Y, and Z. This isn't helping you right now. Well, let's do something different. Or partner, it's like, I think they'd like you a little closer right now. I think the birthing person is feeling a little overwhelmed. And I know they mentioned before during, our prenatals when we were doing the birth vision that they really wanted connectedness and intimacy and feeling grounded. So, and obviously not with so many words if it's like in the moment, but these are the things we cover ahead of time. It's like, that's the value you have. You want family center, but you want that intimacy, you want that connection, and you want to feel grounded. So we practice things to help you do that. And I practice like the hands-on techniques and stuff with the partner so that they know where to put their hands and stuff to help you. But during the birth, it's also guidance, like, hey, like come closer. And I will show like, put your hands here, and I'll like put mine over here. So that, cause it's like 2 hands, awesome. 4 hands, we are covering so much skin. We are doing so much coping with you because the gate theory with your skin, if you accidentally like touch something hot like on the stove, your hand jerks back reflexively. You don't think about it. That's just because the receptors on your skin are very, very fast. And deep muscle pain like a contraction or maybe a Charlie horse or things like that, those are slower to react. It takes longer, and we kind of react a little differently. We can be more conscious of how we react to them too. It's not reflexive. So the more we activate your skin, the more we're doing that, like those reactionary neurons and stuff, like they're firing very quickly, and it can kind of mitigate, like this is being activated on your skin, and so the deep muscle pain and contractions is being reduced the way you're perceiving it. Like it's still happening. And it can help move your labor along as well by doing these coping techniques. But we work together as a team, me and your partner, to just like activate as much as we can. And then I will like adjust as we need to, so that way that deep muscle pain is hopefully feeling more manageable and less overwhelming and less sharp. And we kind of go from there. So that kind of touches on some of the physical support, because that's what I want to get into. Like we do these five methods of support. We prepare you with information. Oh, pardon me, Mike. I attack thee. We prepare you with like, these are some scenarios, these are some things we can do, and we practice those skills so that way, like you would with an athlete the day of the game or something, like it's like, all right, I know what to do, and some of these things feel more automatic. And for anything I forget, the doula is there to remind me that it's going to be okay. Your coach, so to speak, or I like prefer guide. It's like, oh, like, hey, let's go look over here. There's some cool stuff over here. And it's like, let's try this. Yeah, I think she's appreciating that. I think that's working for them very well. And just kind of moving through this. So that frees up, I think, a lot of the doubt and the uncertainty, having someone there who's knowledgeable, that can be your touchstone as a resource of and reassurance that this is normal, this is what's going on, and kind of translating in a way or clarifying when your provider is like, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or we're thinking of doing such things, and asking deeper questions. That's that mediation, that like superpower I talked about before. is if maybe you guys are feeling overwhelmed because you weren't expecting needing to have Pitocin or oxytocin used, and you can't remember to ask like what the risks are, the benefits and the alternatives, and can we have more time, and so I'll ask those questions, just try to give you more information, and that might spur you to remember to ask some more. That helps you be involved. It's oh yes, this is my body, my choice. These are things that I get to choose. I am a consumer of my healthcare, so I should be treated as such. I should be able to make informed choices. So give me all the information that I need to make that choice. And then with that mediation and time, it's protecting your space to make that choice. So it's once you've had your questions answered, if they don't offer it themselves, a lot of them are really good. A lot of providers are just hey, we'll step out here and let you talk about it. And if they don't, it's I think they would like a few minutes to talk on their own, whether I'm there or not, but they would definitely like some time to talk about it before they make a decision. And protecting that space for you, so that way you don't have the provider right there just expectantly waiting for you to agree to what they want you to do. So that way, whether you agree or not, you get to make the decision on your own. You got the information, and now you get the space and time to think about it, and you let them know. And that way you're a part of it. You're a part of your healthcare. You're a part of this process, and you're not just being told what is happening to your body and what's going to be done to your body. You are actively yes, okay, I understand, and that does seem like the best thing for us to do right now, so we are going to do that. Thank you for letting me know. That kind of deal. So that way you don't feel like you're out of control and that you're just being acted upon, that you're a part of this, because that's what we are making, is a birth team. And the birth team's not just you, your partner, and me. It includes your provider, it includes the nurses. It's who we talk to, who we interact with, who we prepare for birth. So that's what we're doing. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of that. And I got distracted. I was yes, let's work as a team. Let's do this. Let's collaborative model of care where we're just let us work together. Let us work in your best interest for what you're trying to do. And whether that's an epidural or if it's not, if it's vaginal, if it's cesarean, let's make sure you're involved and you're advocating for your own choices, because I prefer mediation. When I'm saying interpersonal support, I am a mediator. I'm not here to butt heads. I'm not here to speak for you or make decisions for you. That kind of ties into what a doula doesn't do. I don't decide for you. I don't diagnose you. I don't tell you what you should do. I get you the information that you need if you don't already have it. I get you the space and the time to make those decisions for yourself, for you and your family, what's best for you. And I support those decisions that you make because it's for you and your birth. What I envision for my birth doesn't have to be yours. If it happens to be the same, cool. If not, that also makes sense. It happens. Not everyone's birth is going to be the same. Not everyone's desire for birth is going to be the same. 100%. It doesn't happen. There's variation in people and their interests and their desires. And there's variations too of people's ability to cope with pain. You might be surprised with how much you can cope with, but you also, if you know your body that well and you know yourself well enough, pain medication is there for a reason. It is a good option to have if that's what you want. It shouldn't be forced upon you and pressured upon you, because a common thing you might hear depending on the hospital you go to is just why would you suffer without an epidural? You don't have to suffer. Think of your baby. Your baby does better without an epidural typically. The epidurals tend to slow down labor and usually require oxytocin, which is then the synthetic oxytocin Pitocin, which makes contractions harder and can also make it harder for the baby to cope with. But we give you this information so that way you know the pros and the cons. There are risks, there are some benefits. You could be dog tired. You've been laboring for several hours, you barely slept, you've barely eaten, and you're just I'm whooped. I really need to rest. I don't feel like I can keep on top of these surges. So epidural does have utility. Or if it's I do need a cesarean, and I want to be awake, so I'll have the epidural. So it makes sense that it has utility. And I've said this before, where I'm not anti-hospital, I'm not anti-drugs, and I'm not anti-cesarean. Heavens no. These things have a purpose. I also think that we're more capable than we think. I trust in the birth process. I know there's a wide variation of what birth can look like. And I know that there are complications that happen. So a hospital and a staff that are based in surgery and the things that can go wrong and knowing what to do about them and diagnostics, they have a purpose. And I'm glad that we have them. But we also have birth centers and we have home births. We have a wide range of choices of just how we move through birth and how we approach birth. So yes, like have these from when we need them, but also like shouldn't we be encouraging and empowering people and parents to know that you can do a lot more than media maybe had led you to believe, or your friends and family, or even your own fears. Like yes, there is pain, but it is a different type of pain than like a broken leg. And it comes in waves that are predictable. You're like, okay, another one's coming. And then you rest. And it builds up. And with it, like you may be afraid of where it's going to be, but pending like having Pitocin and other like interventions that might make it more difficult to manage than you'd otherwise think, just for a standard physiological birth where there's no interventions of medications or Pitocin, your body matches up with you. You release your own oxytocin that actually can go through your blood-brain barrier. So you're getting endorphins and stuff too. So yes, the contractions get stronger with that oxytocin, but also your endorphins increase and your ability to cope with it, and the pain drops. It matches up with it when it gets a chance to do that. With synthetic oxytocin like Pitocin, there is no blood-brain barrier passage. So it's just becoming more intense, but your brain isn't able to cope with that endorphins and serotonin and all that stuff to be able to match along with it. So you might need extra help with more hands-on support, more comfort measures, and if it's still too much, then maybe a narcotic like Stadol or something. And if it's still too much, there's the epidural. Like you have options. So that's this framework that we have. And we try to go over all these risks and benefits that you're wondering about during your prenatal, so that way when you're having contractions and when pain feels out of control and unmanageable or just too much at this point, or they're suggesting an intervention, you're not trying to use your logical brain so heavily with new information. Like, yeah, you'll still probably need to ask some more questions and be reminded of some risks and benefits and things like that and the other alternatives, but it won't be as taxing and as disruptive to the birth process for you, because you get into like a labor land if you allow yourself to move with labor and just kind of sink into that moment to moment aspect of it. Doing math, logic stuff, like it's out the window. Like you're into a more primal part of your brain that does the birthing, and that's like sinks into it. So the more we can keep you there, and the less like new knowledge and new questions and new concerns we're dumping on you during these like big moments, makes it easier to be like, so you get a few minutes, between contractions you talk and you're like, I want a few minutes to think about it. And then it's like contractions and you're like, okay, that feels right, or no, that doesn't feel like a good choice. And then it's like referring like, and what do you think? What are our options here? And just like because it can take longer to decide, because you need longer to process, because it's being interrupted by contractions. Trying to think and make decisions and also just process what you're hearing during a contraction is just like, stop talking to her or to them. Just let them birth for a minute, and then we'll ask the questions. So we reduce like how long it's going to take to process, and just like how overwhelming that might feel by going over this ahead of time during the prenatals. So I kind of loosey-goosey started to talk about the 5 aspects of support, and that is like the lead up to the trust in the birth process that I had in the last podcast, where it allows me the space to do the physical, emotional, and spiritual support. If we have the knowledge already shared, and we have an understanding of what your values are for birth and your preferences, and you have an understanding, at least a basic one, of risks and benefits and alternatives, we can kind of give our thinking minds a break, kind of like what I was just saying, with like allowing you the space to be into that like primal labor land, moment to moment mindfulness, contraction to contraction kind of deal, and less disrupted and pulled out of it. Because the more we pull you into this like cognitive logical space, it just makes birth, which is very like physical, very like requires all of your attention, and the more you bring it up into your mind and head space, the harder it is, the more disconnect there is. So we set you up for success with that, taking care of the thinky stuff ahead of time, and trying to get your birth provider on the same page of just like, here's what I'm going for, here's what I like to do, please don't offer me epidural if I don't want one, I'll ask if I want it, or please do if it at such and such dilation, remind me that I could have one, or if it looks like I'm having trouble. So that way we all kind of know like what your general goals are, general view, vision, values, all of those things. And hopefully during that preparation, we get you and your partner to a point where you also trust in the birth process. And whether that's vaginal or cesarean, like there is a process for both. You are becoming parents, you are expanding your family. So the doula, like, I trust in the birth process and the large variation, and I hope to get you guys both to the point of like trusting in you, your body, and your baby to be born. Like, you know how to be born. It's that primal instinct. Like, your body knows. Our logical brains, our fears, our media, all of these things, and just like all the like scary birth stories people just want to tell us, or things that providers are telling us, interfere with this just like innate body knowledge. Like, that's how we're here. Generations of thousands and thousands of years. 10,000 plus. That's what brought us here. Like, we didn't have these interventions, and yes, there was complications and this and that, because it's just like technology changed, and like our ability to cope with infections changed and things like that, because we have gotten better, but we've also gotten worse because we started to interfere. We were doing great, we were really improving, and then we just like, let's just start managing birth, let's start throwing wrenches into it, and let's start having this medical model that your baby needs rescued from your body, which isn't true. Your baby doesn't need rescue. You and your body and your baby know how to birth. We need to give you the space to do it, back up and let you do it. So getting you to trust that, getting you to a point to at least maybe consider this trust in you and your body and your baby. You're working together as a team. Like, I know I said birth team was like me, your partner, you, your obstetrician, nurses. Your baby's in there too. Your baby is working with you. And we're wanting to work together to bring baby down and out so you can meet them earthside. So once we kind of, even if you aren't at the point of trusting you and your body, your baby, and if your partner is and has some doubts and stuff too and concerns, like I do, I have this foundation, so, and I have this knowledge already backed up, so it's easy for me to access. I don't have to think super hard to get there. So at the very least, my thinking mind is taking a break, and I'm focused with you. And that's with that physical, emotional, and spiritual support. I'm one-on-one with you, and like one-on-one and so on with you and your partner together working as a team. But it is like, I'm here with you. And eye contact, that spiritual connectedness of just like person to person. We are all humans. We are in this birthing situation together. We are in this birthing moment together. And even if you're feeling swept up and overwhelmed, like, I'm grounded, I'm calm. I'm like that lighthouse in the storm to help guide you if you need it. You might not. You might be totally confident and capable and on top of this, and I'm here just in case. Like, doctors do all kinds of things just in case, but like me just being here is like, just in case maybe your partner forgets that thing you wanted to try doing. I was like, I remember. And if I see that you're struggling and it looks like you're like feeling tight and scared and you're high pitch, I'm just kind of like gently remind you, like, keep it loose, keep it low noises, and just open, and like these like little guidance things, and just reading off of you, because it, like I mentioned in the last podcast, it is hard to separate the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual support, because they flow into each other. And a lot of it's like intuitive of just like being tuned in with you. It's like, it looks like you're having a hard time in between the contractions, and you can talk and like conversate. It's like, what were you just thinking during that contraction? It's like, I'm really afraid about being a mom, or I'm really afraid of being like my mom, or something like that. It's like, well, let's work through that emotional and also interpersonal of just that spiritual support of just like, hold space with you, and whatever comes up, and we'll process it together. And the physical, that one's the most advertised, when you really hear about just like, oh, she's got awesome hip squeezes, and that counter pressure she taught my partner to do like really saved my back because I was having that back labor from a posterior baby, all of these things. It's like, it's the most well known because it is valid, like, especially with us being continuously there with you. There is no shift change for us. We're here from start to finish, and we help you, the continuity of care during pregnancy. But once you're in like that active labor, we meet together at the birth location, like we're here the whole time until like 2 hours postpartum, maybe longer, to make sure everything's okay, and that you feel supported and ready to rest and just snuggle in and bond with your baby. And we do that. We're here with you. We do all of these things. So it's really, the physical is like a really easy one to identify as like that's what a doula does, but not all touch is just touch. Like there is like an emotional and spiritual aspect to touch. And I'm not just saying like maybe you do Reiki body work, maybe you don't. But sometimes like a kiss on the forehead, huge for some people. It's just like that meant the world. I felt loved, I felt protected, I felt safe. It reminded me of like what I want to feel as a mom and how I felt with my mom, and like releases a lot of things I was holding on to. So that was one like physical touch that did huge emotional work and like spiritual work of just like, that is human to human, person to person connection. And it connected me something within myself and released my fears and this and that, and just like this like feedback loop all into each other. It's all tied into one. That mind, body, spirit connection is that type of support, the physical, emotional, and spiritual. Like we don't have to isolate it. Like a medical model tends to focus on just the physical, but the emotional and the spiritual aspect are all tied. That's spirit, you know? Like you made a person, and that person's inside of you, and that person's trying to work with you to come out. So talk to that person, like encourage that baby to come out, guide them to like, I need you to, work with me. Let's make this smooth. Let's make this gentle. Like it doesn't have to be hard and dramatic, but like just coaxing and like communicating, because you might be surprised. It may seem like woo-woo and esoteric and a little crunchy, but it's like sometimes talking to your baby and getting them on the same page and be like, let's do this together. Let's make this as easy as possible or as smooth as possible, whichever like words like work and resonate for you. And your doula is there to like encourage that, So I believe, quick summary for myself before I lose track, we went over what a doula is. This trained birth professional, and often postpartum professional as well, to help guide you and your partner through the childbirth process. And we went over the 5 types of support: the physical, the emotional, and spiritual just now, and also the informational and mediation, because that superpower of mediation in time, super important, really helpful, and can really save you from a lot of interventions you might not have wanted by just giving you some extra time, not just to make the decision, but also, can we have half an hour or can we have 60 minutes to like get up and walk the halls a little bit, pending COVID restrictions, but can we get up and do something for a little bit, or can I try this position for a while and see how I am then, and just kind of trying to protect this like space for you, because time is important. Like you don't have to fall within this bell curve to still have a safe, normal, healthy pregnancy, because quote unquote normal is a very wide range. The bell curve is an average, and we don't really fit in that average. Like especially for first time moms, it's like, 12 hours, and it's like minimum. It takes a while. Your body is learning how to do this. This is the first time it's had to. Like it has the knowledge and it's the back of the brain there, this primal instinct. But it takes time, and we have research showing that when you rush this process, it makes it harder and it slows it down. And then when we add interventions on top of it, we're just complicating something that didn't need to be complicated. It just needed time. So your doula there as like a mediator to help you advocate for yourself, because we don't want to speak for you. We want you to speak for you. And we want you to feel empowered that you're like, yes, I made this choice and I feel good about it. I feel like I was informed and I made that choice, and I was a part of my care, my baby's care, and that like sets you up for parenthood too. Like this is like a test run for parenthood. The stuff your doula is doing is helping you get the skills and the tools that you'll use for years to come. It's that gathering information and weighing the pros and cons and alternatives, and having that in conjunction with your values. Like what is it that matters to you, and how do you want to go about it? So we do these things, and these coping skills, like it's not just for birth, because the physical and emotional, like you'll need these all the times. And maybe it's your bumps and bruises with your baby. you can use some of these skills with them. Like you probably won't need hip squeezes anytime soon until they're having maybe their own babies. But just that idea of these tools of just how we use physical and emotional and spiritual support to help someone who is going through an intense sensation or an intense emotional upheaval can be used with your babies as they grow, or with you and your partner, or anyone else that you're close with who just needs this like loving, non-judgmental support. And it is like, this is like same foundation, but this is the foundation for birth, but it's like a foundation for you that you can carry on through parenthood and preparing you for that. So we've talked about the doula, the 5 aspects of support. Pardon me while I review my notes just to make sure, because I know I missed something before. Yeah, it was the what a doula doesn't do. I wanted to mention it in the first podcast and forgot to, and I kind of touched on a little bit this one and the last one. And it's to reiterate that I am a trained birth support professional. I'm certified even, but I am not a trained or certified medical professional. Like, yes, I'm an EMT and I know neonatal resuscitation and CPR, but I am not in the role of your care provider. I'm not your medical care provider. Whether it's your OB, your nurse, or your midwife, I am not those things. That's not the role that I'm in right now. Even as an EMT, I'm not in that role right now. This isn't what I'm here for. This is wasn't what I was hired to do. So on that line, like, I don't diagnose you. I don't do medical procedures, whether it's taking your blood pressure, doing a cervical exam, or anything else like drawing blood or this and that. Like, I don't do those things when I'm in this doula role. This isn't what I'm here for. So I don't give you medical advice or a diagnosis either. I provide information. I weigh with you by providing as much resources as I can and asking questions with your provider, the risks, the benefits, the alternatives, how much time you can have, all of that stuff. I help get you the information you need to make your own decisions and make sure you understand what your provider is saying too, because sometimes they use medical jargon. They forget that we don't all come from a background of medical information or even a background of birth. And it needs to be translated a little bit to just like things that can be easy to understand, especially during big moments like birth where it's hard to process as it is. So I don't give you advice, I don't diagnose you, but I do help you get the information you need to make your own choices. And usually for the postpartum doula, this is when this comes up, but I'm not a nanny or a babysitter or a housekeeper. Yes, I do help with like light housekeeping and light cooking and stuff like that. And I help with baby care, especially like helping you and your partner, anyone else in the household that helps with baby, kind of get comfortable with newborn care, whether it's, diapering, feeding, bathing, getting you guys the skills you need to be able to do this. I'm not doing it for you. I'm helping to get you guys comfortable and capable and confident to do it on your own, preparing you for parenthood. It's mothering the mother or parenting the parent. It's just, let's get you the resources you need. Because if you didn't grow up, especially if you're a single child, but if you didn't grow up around babies and young children, you're just like, I've never had to think about this. And like, why is my baby crying? And how do I soothe my baby? Kind of giving you this information, these tools, and then practicing with you, and then helping you be like, yeah, like you're doing great. I really like how you did a lot of this like rhythmic shushing and rocking. And then also you just naturally started bouncing side to side when your baby was getting a little fussy. Like that was really intuitive and really good. Like that worked really well. It's obvious your baby feels settled now. So helping you develop these tools and also emphasizing like bonding. Like that's why I'm not a nanny or the babysitter. Like I'm not doing this role for you. I want you to feel capable and confident to do this role. And to do that, I help you get the education to answer questions, and I like support your choices, and I don't make decisions for you or your family. So if you decide you don't want to breastfeed, like that's okay. I'm not deciding for you. And make sure we go with risk and benefits. And if it turns out for you, the benefit for not breastfeeding is higher than the one of doing it, then that's fine. It's your choice. I support that. I respect that. And to go with that, like what I do is if you really do want to do breastfeeding and maybe there's someone in your household who's not supportive because they formula fed, like maybe your mother or mother-in-law or something like that, it's helping to educate them and let them know, like, this is what you want to do. And we should really help support them, or just like giving them information of just like, did you know this about breastfeeding? And that it doesn't have to be painful. Usually if there's pain, it's an indicator that there's a poor latch, and then here's what we can do to help, and things like that. And like, did you know that babies tend to have a lower risk of SIDS when they're breastfed? And just trying to get your whole support team on your side, and that mediation can still come over to it as well, if they are providing conflict and stuff, helping you get space to, while you go breastfeed, me like mediating to be like, well, let's work on this over here, and what do you want to know, and help. It's a family unit. So yes, what I don't do what I don't do is do that role of the nanny or the babysitter housekeeper, because I'm mother focused, I'm parent focused. Like, you just had your baby, and oftentimes you're the one who gets kind of forgotten, or like second on the list or something like that, because it's the baby. Everyone's super excited the baby's new. I want to hold the baby, do all these things, and it's just like, mom / birthing person / parent got forgotten. She hasn't showered or eaten or slept in a very long time, and her needs aren't met. And so I'm like, let's make sure we do these. You get a shower, you get a nap if you haven't. Like, I'll hold your baby during that time while you nap, not while you go on the town or something. Like, you're in the home, or maybe you walk around the block with your partner, or by yourself even, so you have a few minutes by yourself to just recuperate, but you're not going far or for long. And I'm holding your baby for that reason, because it's finding out what it is that you need and helping you with that, and making sure your needs are met and that you feel able to go about parenting. And through this transition of postpartum, because yes, you just transitioned into parenthood with like having your baby and all of these things, and you're making these choices, but you still aren't out of the woods yet. You're like, it's at least a year of a full transition of just, I'm a parent, and here's all that comes with it. Here's a newborn and all that comes with this, and recovery. Whether you had a vaginal or cesarean birth, you're going to have to recover. Your body is going to be changing hormonally, physically, emotionally, everything. Like, things have changed, and you have to recover from it. And if it was a hard or traumatic birth, there's a lot to process with that too. So that would be a whole other podcast where I will elaborate on that as well, of just the postpartum doula and the transition of parenthood, how it extends beyond the first 6 weeks. But what I don't do, yes, I don't provide medical advice or diagnose. I don't do medical procedures. I'm not acting as the midwife, OBN, nurse, or other healthcare professional. And I'm not the nanny, babysitter, or housekeeper. And decisions for your family, you make them. Decisions for you, your family, your baby, those are yours. I don't make them. I have no agenda other than you being able to make informed decisions that you feel are best for you and your family. They don't have to be the ones that I would make, or the ones that my friend or my sister or my mother would have made, because they're yours. They're your family. And off of that too, I don't replace any members of your family or support team, whether it's birth or postpartum, whether it's your partner or your sister, your mother-in-law, your grandma. I don't replace them. They are important, and if they serve you and make you feel supported, loved, and cared for, awesome. If there's some tension, we can kind of figure out what we can do to help alleviate some of that, because we don't want to push anyone out unless that's what you want. And then of course, like, I'll run the defensive line to give you space, but it's what you want and who you need closest to you, who supports you in your decisions and the birth journey and the postpartum journey that you're after, whether it's vaginal or cesarean birth, or breastfeeding or formula feeding or bottle, any combination between. We're going off of you, what your choices are, and expanding this circle of support and getting them on the same page and giving them the resources to support you better, because I won't be here this whole time. I'm setting you up for the future, for your support, your parenting, and trying to get any of those who are closest to you, who are going to be really a part of this, on that same page and give them the same resources too, so that way they can help you. So yes, in summary, the doula is your touchstone through the childbearing years. We provide these resources, these information, these tools, this repertoire, and during the nitty-gritty of high emotional and physical intensity of sensations and feelings, we're right there with you. We're here with you the entire time. We give you that continuity of care. This isn't just another day for you, and it isn't just another day for me either. Like, I really like birth. I really like seeing families come out of the birth process feeling super confident, feeling super capable, where they're just like, I did this awesome thing, and I feel like I can really get a handle on this parenting thing. Like, it's going to be okay. And like, that was really cool what I did. And I'm like, yeah, that was really cool what you did. Like, that was awesome. I loved seeing parents work together as a team, especially when a partner who maybe wasn't super confident during a prenatal about how they could help, that by the time the birth comes around, that they're just like right there with you, and they remembered where to put their hands the way you like, and they're being responsive and listening and adjusting to when you're like, no, that hurt, but do less pressure. And you're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, work as a team, do this together, because this will carry through. This will carry through post-birth and post that initial postpartum time, through the years of childhood and your relationship and all of these things. Like, this is a foundation. I know it's an overused word for me, but I'm just like, this is a foundation. I'm helping you build a foundation because it's important. I want you to have stable ground to stand upon and build your family life with. It's so good. So yes, excitement aside, and meandering tangents. This is the wrap up of the What is a Doula series. There will still be plenty more to come. I will obviously be having one on postpartum doulas to really kind of go into what they do, because it is sometimes mistaken for someone who is a housekeeper or a nanny or a babysitter. So there's a lot more that we touch on, that we kind of do, that might not seem as obvious as a birth doula with that like hands-on support or like continuous care through a several-hour labor. So stay tuned for that. And I'll be doing interviews as well with birth stories for parents and people sharing their businesses that serve the childbearing years and families in the local area. So stay tuned. And if you want updated, definitely like, share, follow, and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Until then, happy birthing.